Legacy of the Stellar Dawn. The rediscovery began with a whisper. On the fringes of known space, the exploration vessel Sapphire Horizon intercepted a faint, archaic transmission. It was fragmented, distorted, and barely recognizable as a distress signal. Repeating message. This is the colony ship Stellar Dawn. Year 2174. Mission compromise. Assistance required. The crew of the Horizon was stunned. The Stellar Dawn was a name etched in human history, a colony ship launched 300 years earlier during humanity's first wave of interstellar expansion. It carried 50,000 settlers and advanced terraforming equipment, destined for Eden 15, a lush exoplanet orbiting a distant star. But somewhere along the way, it had vanished. Now, against all odds, it had been found. Captain Mira Cade, a hardened explorer with graying hair and a reputation for taking risks, immediately ordered a course adjustment. The Horizon's engines roared as it turned toward the source of the signal, an uncharted star system orbiting a dying red dwarf. "Do you think there's anyone left alive after all this time?" asked Dr. Elias Trent, the ship's historian and xenoarchaeologist. Mira shook her head. "Unlikely. But if the Stellar Dawn is intact, it could hold answers to one of the greatest mysteries in human history." And so the Sapphire Horizon dove into the unknown. When the Horizon arrived, the Stellar Dawn was immediately visible. The massive vessel floated in the void like a dark monolith, its once pristine hull now scarred and pitted from centuries of micrometeoroid impacts. "Running scans," said Ava Morrison, the ship's science officer. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly over the console. "Hull integrity at 67%. Power systems, minimal but functional. There's a faint energy signature in the central core." "No life signs?" Mira asked. Ava shook her head. "None. At least none we can detect." The Horizon docked with the derelict colony ship, connecting to its ancient airlock. As the boarding team suited up, Elias briefed them on the ship's layout. The Stellar Dawn was a generation ship, he explained. It had everything needed for a self-sustaining voyage: residential quarters, hydroponic farms, water recyclers, and a command core in the center. "Let's hope we don't find 50,000 skeletons," muttered Lieutenant Jonas Price, the team's security officer, tightening his grip on his rifle. The airlock groaned as it opened, revealing a dark corridor filled with the stale scent of decay and oxidized metal. The team activated their helmet lights, casting long shadows on the walls as they stepped inside. The interior of the Stellar Dawn was hauntingly still. Rows of cryopods lined the walls of the residential quarters, their surfaces coated in frost. A few had shattered, their occupants reduced to skeletal remains. It looks like most of the colonists were still in stasis when... "Whatever happened, happened," Elias said, his voice hollow. As they moved deeper into the ship, the team found signs of chaos: overturned furniture, scorch marks from energy weapons, and hastily written warnings scrawled on the walls. One message, written in a dried reddish substance, caught Mira's eye. "They're not us." "What the hell does that mean?" Jonas asked, his voice tight. "Captain," Ava called over the comms, her voice urgent. "You need to see this." The team regrouped in the hydroponics bay, where Ava stood before a row of strange alien plants growing amidst the remains of the original crops. The new plants pulsed faintly, as if alive. "These aren't Earth origin," Ava said, scanning the flora with her handheld device. "They're exobiological. Whatever they are, they've completely overtaken the original ecosystem." "How did they get here?" Elias asked. Ava hesitated. "Either we weren't the first ones to find the Stellar Dawn, or something boarded this ship centuries ago." The team pressed on to the command core, where the faint energy signature still pulsed. The journey was tense. Every creak of the ancient ship seemed amplified, every shadow a potential threat. When they reached the core, they found the ship's AI, Solace, still operational. Its holographic interface flickered weakly, a humanoid figure made of shifting light. "Solace," Mira said, "this is Captain Mira Cade of the Sapphire Horizon. What happened to the Stellar Dawn?" The AI's voice was fractured but intelligible. "Mission failure. External contamination. Survival protocols. Compromise." "What kind of contamination?" Elias asked. Solace hesitated, its light flickering. "Unknown biological entity. Breached the ship during transit. Assimilated crew." "Assimilated?" Mira repeated. The AI's response sent chills through the room. The entity mimicked the colonists, trying to replace them. By the time it was identified, 87% of the crew and passengers were no longer human. The team exchanged horrified glances. So the colonists didn't die, Jonas said slowly. They became something else. Correct, Solace confirmed. Final logs indicate remaining survivors attempted to eradicate the entity. Efforts were unsuccessful. Entity adapted. Remains aboard. As Solace spoke, the lights in the command core flickered violently. An unearthly screech echoed through the ship, followed by the sound of something heavy moving in the distance. Movement detected, Solace warned. Entity activity increasing. Fall back to the ship, Mira ordered, her voice sharp. The team retraced their steps, but the corridors no longer felt empty. Shadows seemed to move just out of sight, and an oppressive, otherworldly presence filled the air. When they reached the cryopod chamber, they saw it. A massive, shifting mass of tendrils in humanoid forms emerged from the shadows, its surface pulsating like living tissue. Faces, distorted and alien, appeared briefly within the mass before dissolving back into it. It's them, Elias whispered. The colonists. What's left of them. The creature let out a deafening roar and surged toward the team. Jonas fired his rifle, the energy bolts searing into the mass but doing little to slow it down. Run! Mira shouted. The team sprinted through the ship, the creature's screeches echoing behind them. When they reached the airlock, Jonas and Ava stayed behind to seal the doors, buying the others time. You're not leaving us here, Ava shouted as the doors locked. We'll come back for you, Mira promised, though she knew it was a lie. Back aboard the Horizon, Mira watched the stellar dawn drift in the void. We can't let it escape, Elias said. If that thing reaches another planet? Mira nodded. We'll use the ship's reactor to destroy it. Solace should still be able to trigger an overload. The crew transmitted the command, and the stellar dawn began to glow as its ancient reactor reached critical mass. The explosion lit up the darkness, erasing the colony ship and its horrors forever. As the Horizon turned away, Mira stared out the viewport, her heart heavy. They wanted a new beginning, she said quietly, but they became a warning instead. In the silence of space, the stellar dawn was gone, but its legacy, a lesson of caution and the dangers of the unknown, would live on.